Hey guys, what's up? IrishEmerald here. Welcome back to another episode of the Core Chat podcast, where once again I am joined by OPJellicent.
What's going on, everyone? I'm the OPJellicent.
And of course, today I'm also joined by Mike, who's going to be doing new content on the Core and Forces YouTube channel.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm the PokeMasterMike. What's up?
And today we're going to be going through several different topics for you guys today. Of course, at the start we're going to be doing draft leagues. Well, bit of a change up in the general schedule because we figure we'll do draft leagues first, and then after we do our draft leagues recap, as we normally do, we'll dive into a topic that we figured that we'd talk about today, and that is what the landscape of competitive Pokemon will be with the release of Sword and Shield, particularly with the Dex cut and all that kind of good stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what the two guys here with me think about that news. Before we get started, I wanted to say the listeners totally disappointed me this week. Guys, totally disappointed me. I asked, could somebody show me a replay where Sand was used in OU? I want to see Excadrill doing SD on SDZ Ironhead on Lando T. No one showed me anything. It was a total disappointment. Total disappointment. So I just want to say, you guys listening out there, you failed me. You failed me massively. I gave you a week. I'm going to give you guys another week though, but I gave you a week and nobody tweeted me anything. It was shocking. I felt hurt, to be honest. I felt hurt, but
it's because Sand is bad. I was thinking the same thing.
Listen, Sand is awesome, right? I'm telling you guys.
No, Sand's terrible.
Sand is
really bad in OU right now.
Just because you guys don't enjoy playing in a sandbox, all right? Okay, and the rest of us do. Don't.
Sandbox was never my thing.
Yeah, well, look, just because you like to get your hands dirty, So, just say, if anyone out there wants to do it, hashtag Irish asks. Let me know on Twitter. That's what I want to see it. I want to see it.
I'm about to send you a bunch of rain replays, so you see what a weird weather is like.
I can send you hail, and that would still be better.
Listen, I just need to look out the window. I just need to look out the window and I see what real rain is like. Okay, I live in one of the best countries in the world. You don't need to send me any of that.
That's fair.
Oh, right.
But yeah, do you want to hop right into the draft league stuff?
We'll hop right into it. We're going to start with the UBL, you guys. I am going to start off by talking about probably the biggest match that was on in the UBL this week. Before we actually dive into it, guys, don't forget, if there's any draft league content that you actually want us to cover, let us know as well, because we're covering the main stuff that we know about, like the more well-known stuff. But if you guys see anything that's worth checking out, video or what have you, let us know and we'll definitely go check it out. And if we feel like it's good enough to talk about, we will definitely do so. So definitely let us know if you want us to check something out.
Especially with the GBA recently ending, we'll for sure have more time to spend on the draft league sort of content on this podcast. So just hit us up if you have anything we want us to cover.
Definitely do. But we'll dive right into the UBL. I'm going to dive straight into Vex's versus our good friend the Dr. Slacking. Going to dive right into it. I was watching it this morning before we started recording. I felt it was kind of very similar to what we said last week, Jelly, where when you look at the roster composition, you just don't see where Slacking can actually pick up the win against Vepsis, and I felt that was kind of relative to it because Vepsis seemed to be in good control for. Well, hold on, let me take that back. It seemed that Vepsis always had an answer for what Slacking was trying to do throughout the game. Now, in saying that, I thought Slacking's prep was very, very good. I thought he squeezed as much as he possibly could out of the team he had and in that matchup, but it was just because of how good Vepsis was and able to counter every single threat that Slacking brought. That was the main difference between the two coaches. I think it was mainly matchup and the fact that the two of them are so good that Vepsis was able to just pick off Slacking's threats and not overpredict or get frightened as to what was in front of him. He always made the right move in removing the threat that was in front of him, and I just felt that if the matchup was maybe a bit better in Slacking's favour, he might have actually ran Vepsis a lot more closer. And on the flip side of that, I felt that if he was up against Vepsis, if he was up against probably a lesser caliber player, he probably would have won that game based off the amount of pressure he was able to exert and the fact that he was able to pause Vepsis from time to time and force him to make a tricky decision in order to make sure that he didn't lose the game.
Yeah, for sure. Props to Dr. Slacking for sure for bringing Vepsis down to one Pokemon with such a tricky matchup. I'm looking at Vepsis' season right now. I'm seeing 3 6-0s in a row and 1 5-0, and to bring Vepsis down to one Pokemon with such a tricky matchup, that's got to take a lot of skill. So
no, I thought he was very, very good. When I was watching this more, I was very impressed by what he came out with. Like, it was not an easy matchup for him whatsoever. I don't know if you managed to watch that game, Mike. Did you?
I did not manage to watch the game. I'll be honest. The only UBL games I've been watching have been Jellies. But yeah, like Dr. Slacking is your only loss this season, isn't he?
Yep, I lost him in week, I think, 6, and that's it. So
yeah, so like
that's
right there. Like, you're 7-1 or something like that. Like, that's just, that right there tells you all you need to know. Like, you beat Vepsis, I think, like week 2 or whatever, and beating some other really good players like Goldoa. So like, that tells you right there how good Dr. Slacking is.
Well, we always,
sure he's going to be probably one of.
So
Go ahead.
I was about to say, we already said last week that it was pure luck that he bet you. So like, we can't say that there was any skill or anything like that involved in that. Like, so we can't turn around and say, oh, he's a good player after beating Jelly. But his performance.
I actually threw him to win.
Yeah,
I let my Granbull get weakened for no reason. That's what happened. It wasn't his skill. That's clearly what it was.
It's what happens when you have a horrible nickname like Grand Bully.
Hey, that was not my idea.
Was it Storm's idea?
We can blame it on him if that helps.
Oh my god. Brilliant.
But yeah, besides that, I did say Ultra Player, if you lose to my B team, you know what's happening in the playoffs, and he did lose to my B team, so
yeah,
we'll see what happens.
That means he's gonna beat your A team in playoffs.
He's not beating my A team.
I actually didn't watch that game because you said you were bringing your B team, and I heard that Ultra Player, he even said himself he was going to be bringing a B team as well. So I was kind of like, there are 2 B teams, so
like, it kind of takes the excitement out of it. But
yeah, exactly. I wasn't looking at that game at all. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's 2 B teams playing each other. I'm gonna pass on that.
I mean, yeah, but you can't blame us for that, right? We're trying to win the season here.
No, I totally don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally don't blame you. I thought it was very smart for where you guys are at this season. Although I do feel like he kind of has to win a few more games now coming up to the tail end of the season, because he has got he's got a few people chasing him. Like, he's got Frosted 4-4, he's got Automatic 4-4, he's got Godor 4-4, Root 4-4. So
I'm pretty sure with Deathly's drop, he's actually 6-3 right now and secured Ultra, so I don't think he actually has to worry anymore.
Maybe, no, true. Maybe. So he's got he might be safe enough. Actually, he might be safe enough after that drop. Unless somebody goes in and says, "I'll do the last 2 weeks," but we'll see. But Jay, did you see any game? Oh, sorry, have you got any other comments on Vepsis versus Slacking before we move on to another game?
Not particularly. I was just quiet. I was actually surprised, no shade obviously, but about how close Dr. Slacking got to winning that game with such a tricky matchup. That's really all I have to say about that.
It was very, very tough. Now I thought Vepsis had he always seemed to be like at one point he had 3 months to 1, or like he had 4 months to 2 or something like that. But the fact that he was able to rein it in because he kept Sharpedo in the back constantly and basically force Vepsis to sack bonds and what have you, made it very, very interesting. It was a really, really good matchup between 2 of them. It was well worth watching, you guys, if you haven't watched it already. It was a very, very close game. Did you see any game, Jelly, that you want to comment on? Like, I saw a few, so if you haven't,
I mean, not particularly. I'm just kind of curious about how this whole playoff race is going to turn out. We have so many 5-3 and 4-4 teams just right in the middle right there. It'll be interesting to see what exactly goes down in these final 2 weeks. There's like 7 or 8 teams right there just chilling in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't know who will get in. It'd be tough to see. Like, I kind of would fancy Frosted a little bit.
Yeah.
Because
in fact, I would love a rematch with Frosted. Our game was really good the first time, so I'm all with you right there.
Yeah, no, she's good. She's good. Like, she's a tough battler, and I think she'd be able to beat the Choice Specs. And whether or not she'll be died now or not, I don't know. But she should be 5-4, I reckon, going into the last week, and she should be in the hunt for it. Whereas I think the others, I don't know. I don't know how it'll go for them. Speaking of Goldor, because we were just mentioned there a while ago, I saw Goldor versus Sky. I don't know if you guys saw that match, but that was a really...
I didn't finish to watch that, but I can pull up the result in the matchup right now just to provide some input there.
Oh, it was 1-0.
Ooh. 1-0, yeah, that's extremely close.
Really close.
Just edged it out.
Really close game. It was actually very entertaining. If you guys should definitely watch it. I was watching from Sky's perspective because he asked me to watch it from his side. Because he had a defensive Gyarados last for about 20 turns or so. It was absolutely insane. Considering that he plays hyper offense, to have a defensive Gyarados last 20 turns like in without switching was a bit strange. So I when I looked at it, but it was really tight game. The two of them were kind of going at hammer and tongs back and forth, picking each other's mons off at the very start, and then it got to the point where Sky lost his last offensive mon in Zero Aura, and he was kind of game
Just
over.
playing from the back.
Yeah, he was because to be honest, he kind of overplayed Zero Aura. He should have preserved it. I even commented on his video saying he should have preserved Zero Aura, because he had Zero Aura in, and Zero Aura was his win con. Like the only thing that, like he had to get top of Coco, weakened a little bit more before Zero Aura was able to sweep his whole team essentially. And
I'm just looking at the matchup. On paper, it destroys his team.
Yeah,
just with Plasma Fist and close combat.
Yeah, it just kills it, like absolutely wrecks through it. And Coco was setting the terrain for him as well, so he was getting everything he possibly wanted from it. But he sacked it he lost it too early against Coco, and Coco just picked it off. And at that point, then he was relying on Gyarados to get all the right chip on Skarmory and what have you to make sure that Scizor can kind of come in and finish it off. But it just wasn't meant to be because just he just could never get himself in the right position, and Golor like eventually wore down the Gyarados because to the point where he was able to beat it. Strange how he struggled to beat Gyarados with with a Coco on his team, but he struggled with it for 20 turns, and then it was eventually game over. It was a really tight game, really interesting to watch.
Sure. I'm actually with Mike right here. I'm looking at the matchup right now. I'm not really sure how Sky managed to lose this with the combination of Plasma Fist, Close Combat, and Volt Switch. It looks kind of free, so I'm gonna have to check that match out later.
Definitely do. He was he went spoilers, but he went scarfed, so nobody could outspeed him.
So good speed control.
But yeah, I would have done the same thing too, because he doesn't need the extra power boost. Those two moves just run through him. Yeah. Just run through Goldo's team. Yeah. I gotta watch that later too.
Yeah, definitely do. Like it was it's really close game. I watched it from I thought Sky's perspective was very good because he felt. Well, it was kind of like his perspective on trying to position Gyarados to win is probably the best way to look at it when you're looking at his end game, because he's trying to figure it out. You look at the matchup, it's weird. I thought Zero would have been the man there to do it all for him, but sadly it's not to be for him this week. But bringing up losing 1-0, against Goldo, there's no shame in that either, so it's not too bad. It's not too bad.
Goldo is super good. I've only played him once, and it was like week 1 of PCL or something like that, and I beat him, but he played super safe the entire time, and I tend to play pretty aggressive, and it just, he just let my circuitry end up sweeping him in the end. But I've seen other games that he's played, and he's a super good player, so I'm not surprised he pulled out a win with a unmatchup like this, but it's still impressive that he did it. Goldo is sitting at 4-4 and just outside the playoff race. As I'm looking at the standings, I would not be surprised at all if he made it. Like, Goldo is really good.
I think he's one of the 4-4 teams with the easier last 2 weeks. Once again, no shade to anybody, but I do think he's a better battler than Silver, and I don't even know how much Hera is trying right now, so I wouldn't be surprised if he slips in there.
I think it depends. If Hera is 5-4 going into last week, I think Hera will try.
All right, yeah.
But if he's 6-3, he knows he's got locked up, and he's just going to be like, whatever. So I think it depends on where Hera is sitting in the standings before lead into that week before we know anything about it.
That'll be tough though, because if Hera just says whatever, that could be Frosted spot getting taken by Goldoa right there, and that would be kind of brutal.
Yeah, but Frosted is in control of all that though, because she's plus 6 diff after the slaughter she gave Serene Grace this week. So she's got a nice diff, and she's got she's probably on paper she looks like she has an easy matchup next week.
So she just got to pull out these last 2 games. I mean, Dai is a really good battler, so that'll be a tough time.
Yeah, Dai's really good.
I don't know if Dai.
That's because he took over my team. We've been over this last week. He took over my team, so he had greatness, right?
I'm pretty sure you changed your team, right?
Yeah, well, look, right, just because he didn't want to just win easily, and he wanted to give the rest of you guys a chance.
Is that how it is? Huh?
I see.
I don't think that's how it is.
I'm just saying, if he loses, I'm just saying he butchered my team. That's what I'm gonna say. I give him the keys to the kingdom, and if he loses, he butchered my team. That's what I'm gonna call it.
So if he loses, it's because he butchered your team. But if he wins, it's because he took over greatness. I see.
That's exactly it. Now
it makes perfect sense. Okay, I got you.
You're on my page now, Mike. I love it. Yeah, that's it.
You gotta make sure Dietide sees this.
Oh, brilliant. I didn't watch any other UBL matches other than that. I saw Frosted, Sky, Vepsis. I didn't watch yours because you were watching the B team. You're the B team, and I didn't watch any of the others in between there because none of the other matches kind of really looked like they were as like massive leading to the last.
Yeah, we had quite a few like lower seed teams playing each other this week, so sort of some underwhelming matches there.
I'm still shocked to see CJ down at 12th in the standings.
I know, right? I mean, I've battled him twice. I've lost both times. I really expected him to be like easily top half, if not top 4 of the season. But because I don't know, he's really lacking.
Yeah, he's a really good battler. So I was shocked. I'm shocked to see him 12th. Now I don't know I don't know what's going on with him or what was happening, but it's odd. It's odd to see him down there like that. It's very, very strange.
He could very well finish 3 and 7. He has Dr. Slacking and Vepsis as his last 2, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Hell, God.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I think he's done. Folks. I can't see him making playoffs.
You heard it here. Irish said he's done.
He's done.
You heard it here.
Sorry, CJ. Sorry, CJ, buddy. I just don't see it. I can't see you beating both. And you have to rely on results elsewhere from Root, Goldoa, Otto, and Frosted to lose. So I'm like,
those are not very good odds.
Not really good odds. So I'm just calling it now, folks. He's done. He's toast.
Actually interested. Why is Frosted in red at 8th? Isn't the top 8 make playoffs?
Oh, you're probably looking at the exclusive insider one where
okay, that makes more sense. Yeah.
I'm looking at the I'm looking at the one that just shows the results.
The public one, yeah.
Yeah, the public one. The week 9 one. The week 8 results. Right. So it's grand. Will we take a look
at WBE?
I was supposed to say before we move on to WBE, will we take a look at what's coming up in the UBL next week and what looks like the exciting matchups?
Let's look it out.
Just looking around.
Where do you find the schedule on this website?
If you just keep scrolling down, you see schedule. If you're on the if you're on the public one, so it's easy enough. Looking around at week 9.
Week 9.
I'm just looking. I think Rue has to beat Vepsis week 9. That's a tough game for him. And Otto has to beat UJelly, so that'll be a tough game for him.
I think Otto definitely has to win.
Otto has to win, so 2 must-win games there against for Otto and Root against the 2 coaches who are pretty much a lock-in for playoffs already. So
yeah, I know Frosted has to beat the choice specs, right? She pretty much needs that win.
She does, but she also needs that win as well. I feel like that's kind of she will have that win.
Yeah, I don't see her losing it.
I don't.
Yeah,
see
Goldoa against Silver. That's going to be a good game.
Yeah, Goldoa needs the win 100%, and I'm pretty sure Silver, if he loses to Goldoa and his last match, he could potentially get knocked out. So that'll be interesting.
He can. He's in the same boat as Ultra Player was. 5-3 record, 0 diff. So if he loses one game, he falls into that playoff. Race. He could easily slip out. So Goldoa beating him will put the 2 of them on the exact same record, and Goldoa would have the better diff. So actually, he could totally fall out if Goldoa wins and Frosted beats Choice Specs. He falls out of playoffs. He's 9th minimum, so he's
got to make up for it in week 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So that could be a big game. I would fancy Goldoa to win that as well because
Silver has Dr. Slacking week 10, so you never know. Maybe Silver will actually get knocked out. It'll be interesting.
Yeah. Total fall from grace there for him. But I think that's probably the best match on paper would be Silver versus Goldoa. Based off what I've looked at, like I see Sky versus Hera, but sadly Sky is, Sky would definitely be bringing everything he possibly can to win. Sky's already out of the picture, so it's hard to kind of say that's probably the main match of the week. So I would definitely probably have Goldora versus Silver as the match of the week this week. What about you guys?
Yeah, I also have my eye on Vepsis versus Root. That's going to be an interesting one as well.
For sure.
That should be a
especially
good
for
game.
Root.
Yeah.
Big game. Big game for Root. Right. We'll move on to the WBE then, folks, will we?
Yeah, sure. Mike, you
Absolutely.
actually managed to catch up more of these games than UBL, right? So
Yeah, I watched a lot of the WBE games.
yeah, so you can give a lot more input here. Let's check this out. Where do you want to start, guys?
Well, we can start with at least sorry with you guys. I'd like to start with the I don't want to call it the game of the week, but the game that caused a lot of discussion to the point where one of the coaches was even tweeting about comments he got, and that is Dan versus John. So for those that didn't see it, John ended up winning the game with an agility swords dance Diggersby, and what happened was Dan went hard Skarmory on the Diggersby, and the Diggersby set up a swords dance, and Dan's Skarm, I think, had already taken the sturdy wasn't intact anymore. Like, it could have been knocked out from whatever health it was at by Wild Charge, but it wasn't. It lived on 2, and Dan set up, I think, a spike or something like that, and then he went for a second spike as the Diggersby went for an agility, and people were telling him, "Oh, you threw. How could you throw?" But like, to me, it wasn't a throw because if John had knocked out the Skarmory there, like I believe it lived on 2 or 3 HP, so more than likely it was a roll to knock it out there.
Yeah.
If he'd knocked it out, he would have never gotten up that agility and he could have lost. So like, if I'm Dan, the fact that he swords danced and then immediately attacked, I'm thinking like John probably was thinking he had. I didn't watch it from John's side. I watched it from Dan's side. So John, I'm gonna guess, was thinking Dan had Whirlwind and was thinking he couldn't get up the agility. He just wanted to go for damage. So, but from Dan's side, like, if he swords dances up and then attacks, agility is not on my mind. I'm thinking he's SD3 attacks, with one of them being quick attack, and then maybe earthquake or return, and then wild charge, as he saw. So I don't think it was a throw to set up spikes there. I'm thinking it was because he could bring in his Manectric, HP ice it, and then he had something else that was faster, and like, he had a plan to take it out, and then the agility happened. I don't think it was a throw. And a lot of people in Dan's comment section were saying it was a throw, and and Dan even tweeted about it, like, and I don't think it was a throw at all. I think it was a misplay, obviously.
Yeah, the play was Ironhead, but I definitely from Dan's perspective, when you see an attack come out after a swords dance, agility is not in your mind, right? You're thinking SD, maybe quick attack, exactly the moveset you mentioned right there. I completely agree, but that does not change the fact that you still shouldn't risk it.
Correct. He 100% should have Ironheaded for sure, but I can understand why agility didn't occur to him 100%. The play was still to Ironhead for sure. Yeah. Like,
I'm curious,
obviously it was a misplay. It cost him the game, but it wasn't a throw. A throw is like you're in a position where to me, a throw is in a position where you have the win locked up, and then you make a play that where you like. To me, it's not a throw unless you have all the information available to you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got you.
Like, he didn't have all the information available to him, so I don't consider it a throw. If that makes sense. But yeah, it was still a hell of a good game. Like, it was back and forth. Dan looked like he had the edge, and then that Diggersby came in and just wrecked everything at the end, you know. And John's been having a really good season. Like, the last couple of draft leagues he's been in, like the last season at WBE, and there was one other league he was in, I think P4G. Like, he's been mediocre, but he's been having a really good WBE season this season. I'm happy for John.
6-2. That's really up there, actually. I think he's top 4 in the division right now.
Him and Dan are 6-2, and I know Joey's still unbeaten. And
Wolfie's 6-2 as well.
Yeah. And there's just Gator and MV with 1 loss each, I believe. Which they're in the other division, but still.
So, like, obviously, like, the main talking point of that game was it was that turn, but then, like, the fallout from it was huge. Do you guys think then that, like, yourself, like, both of you guys are still YouTubers that play Draft League? Do you guys, like, I'm not anymore, but do you guys reckon that the criticism that you get then from misplays when you're battling in draft leagues is overly harsh on you versus...
That's interesting. I think you should... Like, I agree with Dan. A lot of the time, the people who comment on draft league videos don't actually have that great of an understanding of the game, so it's kind of hard to take it personally, right? But I do think that when you're constantly receiving negative feedback regarding your plays, it can sometimes affect your decision making, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. And like for me, obviously I'm not nearly as big as Dan or even Jelly, but a lot of times, like I've got a bunch of good friends on Discord, and when I send them replays of draft games, like we'll have like a conversation about things I could have done better or whatever. Like I've got a few people that I talk to about what I could have done better, what I did well, even if I win. And it's, you know, the people who comment on the video are most of the time people who comment knowing what the other person brought. Like they watched they watched both team builders, they watched both sides, and they comment with the advantage of hindsight. When you're there in the game, you don't have the advantage of hindsight because you're there in the game playing it at that moment. When you have the advantage of hindsight's 20/20, it always is, you know. But my thing always is, if you're gonna comment criticism, I don't mind that. Just like make it constructive. It's not constructive to say you suck. Okay, that doesn't help me get better. Like if you're gonna comment criticism, you know, make it constructive so I can learn from my mistake. What could I have actually done better? As long as you do that, I don't care, personally.
Yeah, and in the case with Dan, I think a lot of his commenters were pretty much just saying the pretty basic thing: you should have iron-headed, and you know you're bad for not doing that. But I definitely think, you know, they should have at least considered Dan's perspective and, you know, explained to him why the play he made, which was spikes, was unsafe regardless of the situation. I think that would have been a lot more constructive, like you just mentioned, instead of just saying you should have iron-headed, you're bad.
Yeah. Like, obviously, he should have iron-headed. I mean, Dan realized that the moment the agility went up and he lost. I mean, that's a duh. You don't need to have that pounded in your head by 30 or 40 different commenters. I mean, yeah. Okay.
I mean,
maybe
in a way,
Dan doesn't grasp why Ironhead was the play there, so explain it to him. And even if he does, like, if you articulate why this was the play, even if Dan doesn't agree with you at that particular moment, like, in the moment, maybe he didn't agree with that perspective, like, it's still, if you explain your thought process, like, it's not going to bother me if you at least explain why you thought this was the play, as opposed to this was the play, you're an idiot, or you know, something like that. Like explain your thought process, basically.
At least next time he's in a similar situation where he's, you know, in front of a win condition, he's not going to, you know, do the exact same thing. And, you know, he could actually improve as a battler as a whole at that point, instead of, you know, just telling him he sucks. I really don't think that's getting anywhere.
Yeah. And like usually the thing about it too that you also have to keep in mind too is, like, Dan obviously has a really big proven track record as a draft league player. He's been doing it longer than virtually anybody else in the format on YouTube. And I mean, how often can you look at a Dan game and say, yep, he had his opponent's win con in front of him and just let it set up and beat him without doing anything about it? Like, come on. He doesn't normally do that. It was a one-time thing. It's not like you have to jump all over the guy for making one mistake. It happened. It was a mistake. Move on.
It's kind of sad. Every time I click on one of A-Drive's draft league videos, I can kind of basically already tell the result just off the like to dislike ratio. It's pretty sad, just that in itself.
Yeah.
Do you just to kind of one more side on this before we dive back into like other battles in WBE, but is there have you what if was there any kind of battle that you guys have had where you felt like you received too much harsh criticism from the public watching you?
Ooh, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to think about this one. Mike, you got anything?
From the public, no. From the people in the league, yes.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to, you know.
In particular, my opponent. It was a game that I ended up 6-0ing because I made a risky play.
Wait, so you won 6-0.
I won. Yes, I won 6-0. Right. So here's what it was. Right, here was the situation. I had a Mega DNC in, and I had just killed something. I think it was like Milotic or something. And my opponent threw in Cobalion. Now that and my DNC was still at full, and the Cobalion was at like 70% or something like that because it had taken chip earlier in the game. So I'm like, okay, this screams either Spadef or Choice Scarf. Right? I'm thinking Scarf. So I said, okay, what's your play here? And I'm looking at my squad. I had a Ferrothorn in the back, and I'm like, okay, so your play here is an Ironhead because Ferrothorn is a very obvious switch. You're going to close combat me because I wasn't at full. I had taken damage too, but you're going to close combat me because close combat kill me from the range of health I was at. So instead of going Ferrothorn or staying in, I went hard Miss Magius on the close combat. And sure enough, she was scarfed. And so she switched out, and I nasty plotted up and swept her with the Miss Magius. And after the game, she said that was an unnecessary risk. That was your win con. Why would you switch it in on a potential Ironhead? And I'm like, number one, Ironhead wasn't the play. Number two, it doesn't kill me, and I can just switch into Ferrothorn after that and win with Miss Magius later. And like a lot of people in the league agreed with her, and I'm like, how can you say it was an unnecessary risk? I won 6-0.
I mean, we take those. I actually have a moment too. So way back last year, GBA D League Week 1, big debut and all that. I was battling against, I think it was Choice CJ for Week 1, and he brought this really cool Klefki set with Recycle and Aya Papa Berry, and I just didn't bring the wall breakers to actually get through that. So I ended up getting like 4 or 5-0'd from what I remember, and I just got a ton of backlash from the Showdown Draft League community. People were like, "Why did you invite this guy to the GBA D League? He sucks." And I mean, I didn't really care, but. Yeah, that's like the first thing that came to mind when I thought of Irish's question, but it was just funny, you know.
Jesus. Brilliant. All right, we'll move on. We'll get back to the WB discussion. Jenny, have you got a game that you want to talk about?
Ooh, this is interesting. I'm pretty sure MV and Kelly was last week, right? Not this week, but is it cool if we talk about that anyway?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure. So I don't know if you guys managed to catch this, but there was the scenario in the end where Kelly was up like 3-1, and he had a Rocky MZ on his Zygarde. MV decided to switch out his Togekiss into, I think it was a Victini on like 20%, and Kelly, sure enough, ended up going for the Rocky MZ, and then essentially Togekiss came out after and just soloed Kelly's last 3 Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a baller play by MV.
And for sure, and yeah, Kelly just had no way to revenge it, and I think it's just an interesting scenario. Do you consider that an outplay, or do you just consider it 50-50 as a whole? What are your guys' thoughts?
I consider that an outplay because MV had scouted the Zygarde set earlier in the game with his Ditto, so he knew what the set was. And I mean, MV post-com, you can say anything you want in post-com, but I tend to believe what most people in their post-com say, just because I guess I'm naive. I make fun if you want, but I mean, MV, and I know MV's good, like, and he said he realized that he hadn't seen a Z move at any point in the game, so he figured maybe the Zygarde had a Z move, so he switched into Scout for it. And at that point, like, if the Zygarde goes for a regular Stone Edge or goes for 1,000 Arrows or something like that, like, you're gonna lose anyway if he does have a Z. Like,
yeah, for sure.
Like, there's at that point you have nothing to lose and everything to gain if you get that play right. So
and sure enough,
I consider that an outplay.
Yeah, I'd be the same boat as that. Like, you have to, like, if there's the potential for the Z move and the Z move could cost you the game, then you have to play a bit more safer and try and scout for it. Try and make the opponent to pop the Z move. So I'm totally there with Mike. It was a great outplay. It's exactly what like the top tier battlers should do when you realize a Z move is incoming. Switch out the mon that's going to be your win con. Get something else there to take the Z move, sack it, bring back in your win con, finish off the game. Like it is just the way that this gen's draft league format has gone. You have to be able to do that at the top level. If you're not, you're never going to make the ascension to the highest possible level in this format.
Yep, for sure. I watched the end of Kelly's live com. I would consider it a outplay too, but from Kelly's perspective, he was actually arguing for the 50-50 route. I would consider, like, if it was really a 50-50, you would recognize that if I, get this play wrong, then I lose. But from Kelly's perspective, it didn't really seem as though he acknowledged that Togekiss could solo, even if he got the play wrong, until Togekiss came back in and started roosting up. So from that point of view, I would definitely consider it an MV outplaying Kelly situation.
Yeah,
for sure.
Definitely.
For sure. And yeah, especially like I said, MV in that position, by switching and scouting, MV had nothing to lose, because if he's wrong, if that Zygarde's not Z move, if the Zygarde's not Z move, then he can still win the game, I suppose, because then it would play out more or less exactly like it did. The Zygarde would be spamming Stone Edge versus the Togekiss until it missed, and then but if he's wrong about Kelly clicking the Z move there, then he loses anyway. So you have nothing to lose really at that point, and everything to gain by making that play.
You have literally no reason not to switch out and scout for that.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, no reason. And to be fair, like Kelly was in the position where he almost had to click it. as well. On
Yes,
top of
that's
everything,
the thing.
you had to click it. So like
that's another reason. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but like when you force your opponent to be in a position where they have to click it, otherwise they lose, right? Because Togekiss was in. If he doesn't click it, and even if Stone Age hits and crits and Togekiss lives, but is able to pick off the Zygarde. Like that's it. It's like you're still finished because you weren't brave enough to click the Z move. So once you force your opponent in the position to click a Z move, that's the easiest read to do because you say, right, let me fish for this,
yep.
and if he bops it, I win, and if I don't make this read, I lose the game. Simple as that. So
yeah. Like I've been in that position before in Jelly's league that he runs, the WPL last season. I made playoffs, and round 1, my opponent, I was more or less dominating them. Like I think I was up 5-2 or something like that. And his last 2 mons were an Alolan Muck and a Rest Talk Suicune. And I had Trick on my Rotom Mow, and I was like, okay, all I have to do is kill the Muck and then Trick the Suicune a Scarf, and then I win the game. And I got impatient, and I clicked Trick while the Muck was still alive, and he switched in his Muck and tricked my Rotom the Assault Vest, and I killed the Muck, but the Suicune was able to Calm Mind, Rest, Sleep Talk through my team.
Yeah.
And I lost. I remember playoffs because of that. So like like I know exactly the kind of situation that Kelly was in there. Like in the case of Kelly, he had to click it. In the case of me, I got impatient. But it's the same type of thing, right? Like click the win button when you know it wins for sure. In Kelly's situation, like it wasn't a guaranteed win there if he clicked it. But he could have. Exactly. If he clicked it, that could have been the win, but if he didn't click it, that also could have been the loss. Like it was, to a degree, it was a 50-50, but I think it was also an outplay on MV's part of that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, so like sort of back to the whole critiquing thing. It's so easy to look back at a game and just, nail down everything somebody did wrong and criticize them for it. But in the heat of the moment, it's so easy to make mistakes like that. Like I always forget about endgame paths. I should knock off the Scarf first, then go into my faster Pokemon. It's just so easy to critique a bigger draft league player for just not making the correct play in the moment, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, moving on to another WBE game before we wrap it up. I wanted to talk about Automatic's debut. Well, not his debut, not against John, but his follow-up match against Wolfie that that went on this week. I don't know if you guys watched it. Did you two manage to see it?
I got told the result, but I didn't watch all of it. Nah.
Did you manage to watch it, Mike?
I did not watch it. The last Wolfie game I watched was Wolfie versus K-Cray. So
yeah, you want to give us a breakdown, Irish? What exactly went down?
Yeah, so I was watching from Otto's side of it. His team was incredibly weak to Gengar from the start, and he had one answer for it, and that was Assault Vest Raikou. And problem was
that's not an answer.
Well, that was the only answer he was able to come up with. I don't know why. Don't know why.
That's like a half-assed answer right there.
Wait, I'm looking at his team. He has a Volibee.
I don't.
That's a better answer.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure anything can run Z moves in WBE, so like a Z Thunder or something like that could have been a thing.
I suppose that's true. Fair enough. Okay, fair enough.
At the same time, though, this was his answer. Raikou was his answer, and then he had Tangela as an answer for Excadrill against against Wolfie Sand and all that kind of good stuff. See, Sand is good, guys. Tell you.
No, Wolfie is good. Sand is bad.
No, Sand is good and Wolfie's good using it. That's totally different. But anyways, that was his kind of main answer to Gengar, and then his offensive threats were going to be he had a Trick Room Slowbro, and he had Scarf Latios, and that was kind of what he was bringing offensively. Probably the big problem was that he led with Raikou, and he didn't bring Aurasphere on Raikou. Now, if you guys look at Wolfie's team, Aurasphere had to be a brain, because if you've got Drill and Gigalith to set up Sand, and you have to have that like middle ground play for when extra because potentially if extra just comes in if a predicted full switch, like if you don't have Aurasphere and he realizes that, then you're screwed. And Gigalith also being a good switch in because of the bulk it's going to have with the Sand also means that it's going to be able to eat full switches for days. So having something else to hit it super effectively, works. But he didn't bring Aurasphere, and then first 5 turns he lost, or first 5 or 6 turns he loses Raikou because Wolfie plays aggressively, constantly switches in Excadrill on Raikou whenever Raikou goes for the full switch. And I think it was more so nerves because Otto kind of talked himself into being nervous in the first like 5 minutes of the video, talking about Wolfie and all this kind of good stuff. And in the first 5 turns, he lost his only answer to Gengar, and then Gengar just slowly but surely picked off the rest of his team, and Wolfie came out with the W. Which is very disappointing. Wolfie didn't just win, Wolfie 6-0'd. Which absolutely sucked. I felt that like Otto said in his post-match talk that he felt he didn't play overly badly, but I felt that you don't like those first 5 or 6 turns when Raikou is meant to be your Gengar answer, is meant to be the Pokemon that's meant to be Tornadus Therian as well, and you know what's called designed to beat the Mega Blastoise that's on Wolfie's team and one or a few other things, but like you shouldn't be losing this mon as easy as he did, and he totally lost it. He totally let it drop so easily, and kind of at that point you realise, well, even he said himself in his commentary, Gengar just comes in on me, and
I'm curious. Do you know if the Raikou was shiny? Because I'm pretty sure Aura Sphere Raikou is required to be shiny from an event, and if it wasn't, then Wolf easily knows it doesn't have Aura Sphere. I can switch in my Excadrill every time.
No, he did bring in shiny, so he was prepared in that respect that he knew Raikou always has to be shiny. To be honest, any of those 3 Pokemon should always be shiny, just so to just to throw the opponent.
Well, I guess the one thing too that would have given it away, or I shouldn't say that would have given it away, but that Wolfie should know is that also, in addition to being shiny, it has to be rash. So if it's rash, it doesn't outspeed Gengar. And if he weakens it, even if it is AV, if he weakens it enough, Gengar can pick it off too. So he knows it's either rash and thus Gengar can beat it, or it's rash and has Aura Sphere, but or it's not rash, in which case it doesn't have Aura Sphere, in which case Excadrill walls.
But like
it's kind of one of those situations.
But,
where you're just using one win con to scout for another. You bring in an Excadrill, he reveals the Aura Sphere, you can still take the hit, but at least you know my Gengar can easily switch in on this multiple times. Even if it switches in once, the second time it comes in, I can just stay in and Shadow Ball knowing I'll outspeed. So that's a really good thing to point out.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that was the whole downfall of Otto, was that he didn't have a great Gengar answer, and the one Gengar answer he had was meant to deal with Tornadus and Gengar, and he dropped it. It was gone inside 5-6 turns, and it was effectively game over then at that point, and whatever. No, I thought Otto did go try and put pressure on Wolfie with Trick Room shenanigans, what have you, but just wasn't meant to be this week for him, unfortunately. So I thought it was kind of a good point, probably a good game to talk about how like when nerves get to you, you could just make awful decisions. I think that's exactly what happened to Otto, where he just got nervous, realizing who he was up against, the stage that he was on, and in the first 5 turns he played absolutely horribly, and then he started playing a bit better, like as to what he's able to do, but just just definitely suffered from nerves at that point. I watched Uzi Gunner's game as well, and I thought that was maybe something similar, but at the same time, no, he was too busy cutting promos out in the park rather than trying to figure out who the game plan for up against Tup, and then he lost. So I don't know if it's nerves or too busy cutting promos out in the middle of nowhere, that actually that cost him, but it is what it is.
I caught that result too. I was really surprised to see Uzi lose that game.
Shocked myself. Shocked. I thought Uzi would beat Tup easily, but he was Tup played phenomenally, but I thought Uzi definitely gave it to him because on this on turn 3 when he switches out Kyurem on Mismagius, like if Mismagius comes in, it's normally trying to it's not taking a hit, so it's here to do something offensively, so you can't allow it to do this.
Yeah, you hate to see that too, because if you look at Uzi's schedule, he has a pretty relatively easy schedule up until week 13 against Gator. He could have very easily made this playoff run happen, but with that L, I really don't know if it's happening anymore.
What should I ask? If he wins 5, he puts him 7-6.
7-6, yeah.
7-6, maybe that could be enough, but he has to win completely outright, including beating Gator. So that was a tough loss for him there, unfortunately. But look, it is what it is. It is what it is for him. So he's gonna have to bounce back. Anything else? Actually, unless you guys want to look at maybe what next the upcoming WBE games to take a look at, see what's on next week that would be worth looking at.
Yeah, let's check it out. Let's see what's up.
Check it out. Let's see who Joey's gonna beat next week.
Is that the question now? Who's
That is the
Joey
question.
feed next week?
Patters. Okay, so Patters will be the latest victim of a Volcarona sweep next week.
Actually,
I'm pretty sure, didn't Joey drop Volcarona, or did he pick it up right back after? I forget.
No, he dropped it the week he played. He dropped it the week before he played Wolfie, or he traded it to Gator the week before he played Wolfie for Zera Aura, and then he traded it back to Gator after that. Like, he traded it and then traded it back for 1 week.
Oh, so these people are just out to get Wolf, is what I'm hearing.
Well, he saw Volcarona had I guess he saw Volcarona had an unmatchup, and Zera Aura had a God matchup, and I guess whoever Gator was playing Volcarona would have had a really good matchup, so they just swapped for 1 week and then swapped back. I guess Joey caught a lot of crap from the coaches for that, but it wasn't banned or anything, so...
No,
yeah, I mean, why not?
Yeah, if it's not banned, then why not?
Yeah, don't see any reason why not. But just before we kind of move, actually, I totally forgot to mention it. I thought Nexus's prep against Joey was actually awful when I was watching that game from Joey's side. I thought it was just shocking. Honestly, yeah. I didn't think Nexus's prep was anywhere near good enough for what was needed to.
I would agree with that completely.
Yeah, I like if your main switching to PokeMasterMike is your Mega Medicham, which you want to bring cleanly every time. You clearly not done enough in prep to get yourself right, and the fact that you don't have U-turn on your Zapdos, knowing that PokeMasterMike is going to be the main switch into your Zapdos, was absolutely insane. I thought the prep was absolutely atrocious, and it just made the game for Joey so easy. Like it was just like Joey, bar the Exploit, which came in turn 1. That was the only thing that caused Joey a bit of upset. After that, it was so easy for Joey, because Joey was like, oh, hold on, I can live a hit here, buzz this thing off, and now it's in range and comfy. Like, yeah. It just took Joey like a minute and a half to figure out, oh, this is what I need to do to get around this one instance. And that was the only time that Joey was under any bit of pressure. After that, it was so easy for Joey, it was insane. So I thought Nexus prep was not good enough at all. Like,
looking at Nexus' team, it's kind of hard to prep for this with this roster. His 2 fastest Pokemon are base of 100 with Zapdos and Mega Medicham, and I'm pretty sure Joey has multiple Pokemon above that, right? Mega Gallade, I want to say, is 110.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can see where the prep struggle came from, but
there's another thing for you now, right? Actually, he had no answer for Mega Gallade, right? But he has a Doublade on his roster that actually can wall it.
Even Knockoff's not doing that much. It can sponge +2 Earthquake if you really want to EV it to do that. Yeah. That should have easily been a strong bring.
Yeah, so how Doublade does not come in that game for Nexus, just to be able to stop Gallade from doing as much work as it did. Because Gallade ended up tearing his team apart at the end after everything was put into position. So he had no real answer for it. So I'm shocked to see Doublade not come, because there's just nothing he can do. And then, of course... Joey gets into 4-move Sauce Syndrome, because he can't bring EQ, he can't bring Knockoff, he can't bring Drain Punch, and he can't Close Combat, Psycho Cut, Zen Headbutt, and Swords Dance. He has to pick 4. And like when you look at it, he was always going to bring a fighting move, a psychic move, set up in order to break through his team, and then he was going to bring 1 coverage move. And if it was Earthquake, then Tangrowth sits in on it and can do a bit more work against it if it's EV correctly.
Fighting Stab is still going to do a lot to Tang.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true.
That was the other weird thing, that he brought red card on Tang for Gothitelle. Like, I'm pretty sure there are some sets he could have come up with for Tangrowth that could have 1v1'd Goth and then run a better item on it.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Like, Sleep Powder for sure. Like, Sleep Powder, you run the risk of a sub Gothitelle, but like Knock, Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, stuff like that. There are Tang sets that could have 1v1 Gothitelle.
Yeah.
That he didn't need the Shed Shell for, excuse me.
Yeah.
That's why I really hate the item Red Card. It's sort of just an item that delays the inevitable, right? Sure, you...
Yeah. It wasn't Red Card, I misspoke. It was Shed Shell. He had Shed Shell on Tangrowth.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know we totally left the change subject there, but for me, when we mentioned Joey, I was like, wait a minute, I totally forgot that match, because I was watching it.
Yeah.
Crazy. I think... For myself for week 9, the Gym Chargers versus Leo.
The Dreadagons, that's going to be big.
That's going to be a big game. I think that's probably going to be the match to watch, if I'm being honest, based off.
Wolf and John, that's definitely a big one too.
Yeah, Wolf versus John will be a good one.
That's the season 1 finals rematch, right? I'm pretty sure they.
Correct. Yes, actually.
Yeah, that should be really good. That should be a cracker of a game.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that. Yeah, I think those two are probably the two that really stand out to me. I don't see any of the others that kind of really scream.
Yeah, nothing else. It's a lot of these are either just dominating teams battling against someone who's not dominating, or just two of the lower down teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think those two games, the Shooting Chargers versus the Drulligons, and John the Pedipers versus Wolfie the Bewares should be two good. They should be two cracking games.
Yeah, I'll laugh if Dan loses to Deathly again though, because Dan is like 1-3 against Deathly in the format, and the battle this week as well. So that'll be interesting.
How is I'm sorry, like not to be too mean to Deathly, but how is Dan 1-3 against him? I'm perplexed. Totally perplexed, like, you know.
I don't know. Like, it's the thing with Dead. He beat so many solid battles. Like, he's beaten MV multiple times, Wolf multiple times, and then he's 1-3 against Deathly and 1-3 against Feint Attacks. It just confuses me.
I'm totally perplexed, like, cause like no offense to Deathly, but even I bet him. So I'm like, surely Dan like would be able to beat him. I don't know, but you know, look, it is what it is. Maybe it could just be his bogey team, and Dan just can't get around him. Oh, brilliant. Yeah. All right, okay, so we actually managed to have a great drafting discussion there. I'm sorry, guys, that we went totally over time. This is the reason why we don't normally do this first, but you know, because it's very hard for us to cut it or stop when we get started. But that'll be I think that's going to be it from the drafting discussion this week, unless you guys have anything else to add.
No. I think we're good there. Yeah,
we're good. Okay, cool. Right, so we move on to our final topic of the day, which is the future of competitive Pokemon. Ever since the news that Sword and Shield are having the dex cut, so most of you guys probably know this by now, but for those who don't, Sword and Shield are not going to have like the full dex, the Pokédex in the game. So we're not going to have the 900 plus Pokemon in the game in Sword and Shield. We're going to only be allowed to have 400, 450 roughly so.
Yeah, around there. I think it's definitely gonna be less than 600, maybe above 500, somewhere around that range.
Yeah, so we're talking roughly around half the Pokemon available to us in like Wi-Fi leagues and such. So obviously this throws in huge question marks over the like competitive landscape, because up until now we've always been allowed to have the full decks. For the especially since the real dawn of like competitive Pokemon that when it blew up, we've always had the access to the full decks. So this is going to be like kind of really brand new, the fact that we're not given access to the full decks, and it's going to definitely change the full landscape of how competitive Pokemon is going to be viewed, both like playing it and on YouTube. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Mike, since you're new here to the podcast, what would be your initial thoughts on what's going to happen with competitive Pokemon after the news drop that we weren't going to have the full decks?
I'm mixed about it. I think that the competitive meta is going to be interesting because, I thought the Let's Go meta was going to be interesting too when I heard it was only going to be Gen 1 and Alola forms and Megas, but then there was no abilities, no items and whatnot, so I was like, oh, okay, it's not going to be fun. But now they're bringing back, the abilities and the items, and they're adding Gigantamaxing and Dynamaxing, which I don't know how I feel about, really, but I think it'll be an interesting metagame for sure. I'm mixed about the dex cuts, because while there are going to be certainly some mons that are not in the game for sure, like Garchomp, for example, that I really, really like, there are going to be some mons that I know a lot of people are tired of seeing, like Landorus, that are gone in all likelihood, so that'll be fun. But it'll be like a kind of a grab bag. There are going to be some mons that people love that are in the games, and some mons that they love that are not, and then there's going to be mons that some people hate that are in it, and some mons they hate that aren't, and they'll be happy about that. And then there'll just be those mons that nobody really cares about that are in and that are not in. And I think the meta for sure will be an interesting metagame, to say the least. But I mean, we don't know guaranteed everything that's in the decks as far as old gens. I think we have a rumor, but I don't think that's official. I think Cerebi has a rumor there or something like that about what supposedly is in there from older gens, but I don't think that's official. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's only a handful of things from Gen 7, I think, Beware, Mudsdale, a couple other things, Toxapex.
Yeah, you're right, for sure.
Yeah. Things like that. So, yeah, Toxapex, if that's... Well, we know Toxapex is in the game because it was in one of the trailers, but, things like that. So, the thing that I am more so upset about with this is the fact that they and by that I mean Game Freak said that, like the whole reason for going to the Switch from the 3DS was because the 3DS was outdated. The Switch is a more powerful system. They can do more stuff with it, yada, yada, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Don't give me this explanation about how it's too time consuming to make the models and to make the animations and this, that, and the other thing. And so you can't put them all in the Switch, and it's just hard to have everything available on a Switch game. Well, then, like, no, you could transfer every single mod that ever existed into ORAS or Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So like if we could do it on the 3DS, we should be able to do it on the Switch. If it meant that they needed more time to work on the animations or the models, like I said this in a video I uploaded recently, like if Game Freak had come out right after Let's Go came out and they said, okay, look, we have two options here. We can give you a game with a dex of about 500 mons, including new mons, and we'll release it in 2019, or we'll put out a game with every single Pokemon either available in it or able to be transferred into it, but we'll need an extra year, so it'll come out in 2020. Pick one. I would pick the 2020 release.
Yeah, but
that's just me.
They couldn't do it, right? Now I'm on the side that they should have had all the models there 100%, but they couldn't delay the game because, like, unlike other games that is like that just, or if we have a problem with development, we'll push back the release date and we'll announce it. But with Pokemon, like, so much hinders on them having a new game on a certain cycle, because if they're not able to release a new game with the next version of the anime and the next version of TCG, then they all take a massive sales drop, right? Because like the anime does X amount and the TCG do X amount, but like the video game does like X squared amount. Like it does like an extremely massive amount more than the anime and the TCG does revenue wise. So if they can't delay, so the game being delayed forces them to have the anime and the TCG delayed, and if they have to delay that, then that totally stumps everything that they have planned up on their production line. So like they were in a catch-22 situation where they're not able to delay the game because the negative effect it would have financially on the anime and the TCG, and then of course by having to curtail the Pokemon that's in the game, that meant it meant that like fans of the game who are still going to buy it, but fans of the game are still not going to be happy with it. So which
is fair. What I would say to that though then is, because obviously they've known they were making Sword and Shield for a while, like by the time Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon came out, they knew Sword and Shield was going to be a thing, and they probably knew what the game after that was going to be too. But if that's the case, if you can't delay the game, then don't make Let's Go. Spend the time that you made making Let's Go making the models for Sword and Shield, so we can have a national dex in Sword and Shield. Is what I would say to that.
Yeah, no,
I don't think like Let's Go was fun. It was an excellent idea to bring people who only play Pokemon Go into the to entice them to go buy a Switch and get into the main series games. I completely think it was an excellent idea. Just as a competitive player, I was bummed because the competitive meta didn't exist, but they were fun games. I enjoyed them. But would we have been missing anything without them? No. I think if that's the case, if you can't delay the release date of Sword and Shield, then don't make Let's Go, and let's focus on making Sword and Shield as kick-ass of a game as possible for when it comes out in 2019.
Yeah, sort of building on that whole perspective as a competitive player, I really hope that people still care for the meta in Sword and Shield despite the limited decks, because the Let's Go with Pikachu and Eevee meta that came out, people played it for like 2 weeks and then it just ended up dying from there. I really hope we don't see more of that with 400 or 500 Pokemon. I know Let's Go was like 151, but that's really my biggest fear, just with the limited deck. So I don't really mind the whole, I mean, I do mind it, just not all the Pokemon being there, but it's not really my biggest concern. My biggest concern is just, will people actually care about competitive anymore?
I think that's like a not just a concern. I think that's like a legit fear. Like for me, I know it's definitely like that's a huge fear, because like when they announced the news, we're not going to have every Pokemon available, I was like, okay, like this is really bad for competitive Pokemon. Like not the VGC, but like competitive Pokemon outside VGC, this is really bad for us, because like everything just takes a massive knock then competitively. When they announced that they weren't going to be releasing Pokemon on a staggered basis, like I I think that was probably the biggest gripe against the whole thing, was that when they said, right, we're only going to have these amount of Pokemon on launch, and they never turned back and said, oh, we're going to have a DLC to allow you to have the rest of them. I think that was a massive fail on them. They should have said by February, like early February 1st, we'll have all the Pokemon. Then that would have been way more acceptable. I don't think there would have been anywhere near as backlash.
Which they did with Gen 7 when Sun and Moon came out. For the first like 3 months it was out, you couldn't transfer anything in via Pokemon Bank. It took them a couple months to get that set up, and then you could do it.
Yeah, so
which was fine. There was like a separate meta. There was like a just OU meta. There was a standard meta on Showdown for everything that was just in Sun and Moon, and then there was a Pokebank OU for things that you could bring in through Pokebank once it opened, but not. It wasn't until Pokebank was actually released that they just became one tier, but until then it was two separate tiers, a Pokebank meta and a non-Pokebank meta, which was cool. I played both a little bit, so I mean that was fine.
Showdown has confirmed that they're going to do a national Dex meta, but just the fact that it will never be official. Like back then, the Pokebank meta, we knew people were playing that because it would eventually be the meta that took over Pokemon Showdown, but with this, the national Dex meta is never going to be official, so I don't see it having that same success.
Yeah, and that kind of like feeds into my fear of the whole thing as well, that you kind of mentioned it, like Jelly, like the fact that we're not going to get a full Dex, and the fact that Smogon isn't going to have like a national Dex meta as their official meta because it can't be implemented on the latest games. It can only be implemented on Showdown. So for me, this is like a massive negative for the whole thing, because if you're not allowed to use every Pokemon like across all the different tiers, then I feel like you're literally just putting like the shackles on the whole meta, essentially. Like you're forcing people to you're only allowed to use these group of Pokemon, but all these other great Pokemon that are like Garchomp, for example, that have been used for generations now at this point. Oh yeah, no, forget about that Pokemon. You're not allowed to use that Pokemon here anymore.
Yeah, like, can you imagine OU without Garchomp? It's been around since Gen 4. That's so disappointing.
That's gone. Vanished. You know? So, like, forget, like, that's, like, you can't, you're not going to be able to use that anymore. So, I think some people are saying, oh, I can't wait, it's going to be so fresh. Those are, I guarantee you, those people who say this is going to be brand new and fresh, they're not going to be knocked around after a month playing OU. Like, they're going to be gone. So for me, like, all right, that's your opinion, but I know for a fact you're not going to be here after a month. It's going to be the rest of us that are kind of still playing, that are going to be suffering long term with this, because we love playing competitive Pokemon, and not being able to use every Pokemon is a huge hindrance on us, because you've just taken away the complete fun of the game from us, like, because we're restricting what we can use, and all the official stuff on Showdown anyways is going to be based on 450 Pokemon, which is, and then of course this doesn't have a knock-on effect on OU, like UU.
Yeah, for sure. It's gonna affect pretty much every meta besides VGC, like you mentioned.
Yeah, every single, like, you imagine PU, right, for example, or NU, where it's just a huge plethora of Pokemon you can pick from, and the idea of those tiers is to allow the less used Pokemon to actually shine and get a bit of game time, like Flareon, for example, or something like that. The fact that they're that pool is limited now can also reduce their usage, because wait, hold on, like, I know for a fact that in PU now I'm only going to have like really 50-ish Pokemon that I can use. I'm being very kind there if you ask me, but 50-ish Pokemon that are going to be really that I can use, and I can't really dip any lower than that, because the rest of them are going to be up high in higher tiers, and everything below it is just rubbish, because it's going to be like tier, like, you know, little cup Pokemon or something. So I feel like it's going to be very bad. I think Smogon are probably trying to do their best to get around it, and I hope that they'll eventually realize that, okay, this Sword and Shield exclusive nonsense as our main ladder, as our official ladder, isn't working. We've got to have a national Dex to fill out all the tiers, and I hope they do switch gears and do that, and we'll wait and see. But I think when it comes to Wi-Fi balance, that's where the big issues are going to be. I think Wi-Fi balance is dead and buried, I think, based off the information we have right now.
Even a step forward from that, even if Smogon and Pokemon Showdown does care about, you know, implementing the whole national Dex thing, it'll be interesting to see whether the fan base, the competitive fan base, will actually follow and care for that as well, or whether they'll stick to the official meta because it's official. I mean, I've already been over this, but that'll be really cool to see whether they actually follow along or not.
Yeah, true. It'd be interesting to see where like people go with it. But for me, I would go with national Dex, because you just get more toys to play with.
It's just more fun. Like, Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't get why I want to restrict myself. Like, you know, I want to live free.
I wouldn't be surprised if regarding draft 2, we see some drafts just hold a national decks draft and just say whatever to the limited decks.
I think draft.
The problem with that is that
struggle. I think draft will struggle. I think the all these big Wi-Fi leagues. I think they're gonna. I think we could be seeing the last of the WBE and the GBA and the UBL and all these other draft leagues that are on console. I can see them just being either going to be forced to play in with the what's called the Sword and Shield decks, which is going to be a restricted number of Pokemon you can pick. So that also has then that'll have a hindrance on. Or okay, the standard 16 coach format might be out the window, so you might only be allowed to have 12 because you can't. Not everyone can draft from the huge pool because the amount of Pokemon that are viable are limited. And then I think the fact that, you know, not everyone would be interested because Draft League was always a case where Pokemon that are not overly popular finally get a chance to shine because you can build them to counter your opponent's team. So I think all that will be shifted over to Showdown. And I think the whole like Wi-Fi draft leagues, you know, I could just see them being eradicated after this. I think like they're dead and buried after once Sword and Shield come out. I think GBA will give it a go at it. I don't think it'll work based off how Let's Go went with them. I think it'll just, you know, fizzle out with them, and I think by the time, I'd say by this time next year we won't be seeing too many Wi-Fi draft leagues anymore. I think we'll be talking about Showdown draft leagues.
Yeah, for sure. Showdown, National Dex meta, the Wi-Fi. It's not. I don't see it happening. I'm all with you in the red there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, very disappointing. I think they've totally messed up. I think they've completely and utterly messed up. And I was kind of hoping that they were going to lean more towards actually making it extremely easy for people to get competitive Pokemon to play on Wi-Fi, to curtail this whole genning stuff like that people don't like. I was very disappointed to see them flip the other way, if you get me. So it was kind of very disappointing news. But hopefully they might change their minds and actually release Pokemon. Or what probably will happen is they have Sword and Shield 2, which have all the Pokemon in it, and we're all going to sit here and play both games, and at the end of it, it'd be exactly the same as we were at Ultra Sun and Moon, saying, why wasn't this the first game that was released? And
yeah, I could see that too. That sounds like something they would do.
Yeah, that sounds like their bread and butter. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah, so I think that's exactly what's going to happen, and we're going to have to wait a full year before we get any real Wi-Fi draft content properly back on the scene, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, we're gonna get that trailer one day, and we're just gonna raise our eyebrow like, why wasn't this in the first game? Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You know, well, they should have just hired better developers. That's all. That's what they should have done. Any more final thoughts on that, guys?
I'm good. You got anything, Mike?
No, that's pretty much all for me.
Okay, perfect. I think we'll wrap it up there today, folks. If you haven't clicked the subscribe button or the follow button on the various different platforms this podcast is on, definitely do so. Make sure to check out Jelly's, Mike's channel, and of course our own YouTube channel. All those descriptions all the links to them will be in the description down below. Definitely go do check them out. Definitely reach out to us at Core Enforcers, at IrishEmerald, at OPJellicent, at PokeMasterMike. Hopefully I got the Twitter tag right there for you, Mike. I'm not too sure.
It's PokeMasterMike too, but yeah.
There we go. Make sure to reach out to us if you have any comments about the or on the YouTube video down below. If you got any comments about the podcast, and if you got any questions that you'd like us to answer for the next podcast coming up, or if you have any ideas for guests you want us to have on the podcast as well, let us know. We'd love to hear the feedback from you guys because it's the only way we can get better. Anything else, guys?
Yeah, that's it. You close us out.
All right, perfect. As always, guys, thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.